Hello fellow modelers, this time I will build the Loire Nieuport 411 in 48 scale of Azur. It was one of those French planes designed in emergency in the face of the rise of the Nazi peril. It was supposed to be the French Stuka for the Navy and her aircraft carrier, herself based on the World War I dreadnought hull. In practice, very few were built. They were underpowered, thus slow, complicated and not reliable. Among those who saw action, most of them were down by the Luftwaffe. I found this kit on a show for a very good price. In this particular domain, I am like Oscar Wilde. I resist everything but temptation. I bought this box from a model maker who had already started it a little bit. The plastic is typical, well molded for a semi-handmade brand. The structural lines are sharp, the entire interior is in resin. It's up to me to highlight these pretty details. The previous owner started dry fits. He tried to figure out how to position the cockpit. Everything seems to be fine, so I start to remove the excess from resin parts. I cut them by moistening to avoid the harmful dust. The cockpits of the French planes of World War II were dark blue. To illuminate the interior, I add a thin layer of lighter blue. In such a small space, it is necessary to exaggerate the contrast to see the details. The harnesses were molded with the seat. I prefer to replace them with those for my PE stock. Resin exhausts were missing from my box. I had to recreate them in evergreen tubes. I started by enlarging the inside, then thinning the outside. To guarantee the bonding, I added reinforcement. The dashboard is classically painted in black. The white dials are enhanced with a 0.05mm black pen. Now it's time to assemble the cockpit with CA glue. As usual, resin parts are thinned to the maximum to ensure a good fit in the fuselage while leaving enough material to not to be too fragile. The dashboard is the first to be glued inside the fuselage with an evergreen reinforcement for safety. To ensure the hold of the cockpit, I added styrene reinforcement in some places. The closing of the fuselage was not so easy. With patience and tape, I went through. A few gaps remained. I filled them with stretch sprue. I did a dry fit with a one-piece intrado. There is a huge lack of material to fill. There is sanding work. This is normal for a semi-short run kit. It was also necessary to accentuate some lines. To clean them, nothing better than liquid glue. A smooth sanding with steel wool finishes the job. The Intrado fit is not good at all. I added reinforcements in anticipation of the gaps to be filled. The previous owner had already installed the resin undercarriage bay. I only added the wing radiators. Here you can see styrene strips around the flaps base. Soon I will show you why and what I have done to improve their details. Now I will deal with this Intrado problem. I fill the gaps with stretched sprue. I melted the plastic with cellulosic thinner. While these reinforcements are drying, I will tell you about the flaps bay. The person who sold me this kit certainly wanted to open the flaps base. I could have closed them. I decided to take up the challenge. I started by creating Extrado structure. All the time I spent on the flaps base paid off. Everything fits without problem. To ensure a perfect connection with the fuselage, I hold the dihedral with a long adhesive tape. There are no pins to hold the horizontal stabilizer. I prefer to drill them and the fuselage to insert a brass tube that will guarantee the strength. Here too, the fit is not perfect, but it will be easy to fill the gaps. Thanks to the adhesive tape, the fuselage wing fitting is good. The stretched sprues have dried well. Once sanded, nothing will be visible. The presence of winglets at the tips of the horizontal stabilizers suggests that this aircraft had serious longitudinal stability problems. A little earlier, before gluing the wing, I prefer scratch-built new flaps and do a dry fit. The flaps are simply made of evergreen profiles and strips, cut, glued and sanded to the desired shape and size. A last dry fit and it is finished for the external flaps. The Loire Nieuport had radiators entrances under the wings and exits above. I detailed the bottom of this resin piece intending to receive the interior scratch-built flaps. The canopy rails are given in resin. They are not accurate at all. I replaced them by 0.5 mm evergreen rods. a first layer of grey as a primer to track small defects. Let's start the camo. In 1940, for the camo, the colors were well defined, but for the sheen it was at the choice of the painters. That's why there were not two identical plates. This done, I started the first weathering with faded basic colors. A thin layer of gloss varnish before applying decal. For the first time, I tried Tamiya Mark Fit as decal softener, free advertising. The result is pretty good. After a light coat of gloss varnish on the decals, I pass a toothpick in the panel lines. I do not do it often, but this time I decided to rivet some panels. Then I smooth the surface with steel wool. Those planes did not last long. Most of them did not return from their first mission, so I do a very light weathering with brown Tamiya panel line accent. Half an hour later, I clean the excess with a tissue soaked with white spirit. And now, here is the most difficult part of this kit. The landing gear is not accurate. Keeping only a few pieces, I scratched the rest with brass tubes, syringe needles, electric cables and some evergreen profiles. And in addition, it will not be easy to install everything because Azur does not give the landing gear hatch fastener. More scratch in perspective. After a week of effort, it has been impossible to install this assembly at once, even less to film anything, so I dismantled it and rebuilt the broken part. I proceeded step by step by positioning one part at a time. Even for the hatch, it has been a great moment of solitude. It must be said that it is more than bizarre. Even the wheels required a lot of upgrading work. Well, I went through. For more strength, I replace the rear wheel leg with a piece of paperclip. My flaps took place easily. I replaced the resin original control rod by a thin brass rod. I simulate dust on the wheels by moistening them with petrol F and brushing them with pastel powder. After a dry brush with metallic paint, the exhaust stains are made with watercolor pencil. I replaced the plastic antenna with a metal one. And that's it for the plane. I found this French pilot figurine of an Hungarian brand on a show. As usual, the painting of a figurine is a long process requiring multiple thin layers of very diluted paints until obtaining the desired shade and depth.